Everyone has a story to tell, shining a light on stories that uplift us, that change us, that inspire us. The Yogi Hour. Listen, be inspired.
Okay. Welcome back to the Yogi Hour. This is episode 4. We're live and online on every Tuesday at 6:30, live from Ireland. And this week we have a wonderful person by the name of Vaishnavi, all the way from America. Welcome, Vaishnavi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a couple of years since I last was talking to you or I've seen you.
Yes.
Now, Vaishnavi is a Bhakti yogi, a healer, and a life coach. And just sort of to start with that, maybe you could give us some background about those different things that you're involved in.
Sure. So, well, I started, my journey as a Bhakti yogi in 1990. And that's when I went into the ashram in Montreal, in Canada. I'm actually French Canadian. And so I lived as a monk for 7 years. And also during those 7 years, I traveled for about 4 years up and down in Canada and just talking to people about what is spiritual life, what is Krishna consciousness or God consciousness, and giving lectures on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, chanting Hare Krishna, having kirtan. And so I traveled a lot for, about 4 years. And then I met my wonderful husband who, by his association, I got to learn more about Ireland because he was a monk in Ireland. And,
but is he from Ireland or is he from?
He's American, but he came to Ireland, never left. He joined the ashram in Ireland and just loved it and lived in Ireland for about 9 years.
Wow.
And he went to India and then somehow we met in Canada and, we got married. That was in 1997 when we got married.
Okay. I was still in school.
Yeah. I know. I'm going to be 50 this year. It's quite amazing. Time goes by.
Yeah, it does.
And so with my husband, we traveled quite a bit and we lived so many places in India, in Taiwan, and in Ireland. And then basically, as far as, you're asking me about how I guess I became a healer as well as a Bhakti yogi, right?
Yeah, about the healing. You do a very interesting healing type of healing that you do. I mean, I've done some work with you, or you've done some. I should say you've done some work with me, and it was amazing because I was here in Ireland and you were in America. Yet from there you were able to heal me. So you were. So
yes,
it's kind of.
It is kind of amazing. It's actually really wonderful because it blends so nicely with Krishna consciousness. I mean, my spiritual foundation. So the healing work that I do is very much based, has grounding in our, in the understanding of who we are as spiritual beings, and the understanding of, so what are we doing in here in these bodies, if we're spiritual beings, and what keeps us in this body, which is our subtle body, our mind. So all of that, understanding of Krishna consciousness, the understanding of who we are as spiritual beings, as souls in material bodies, and the understanding that of reincarnation and karma. Yeah. And, so how do you put it all together to make sense of the life that we live today? as opposed to just some religion that you just join and it's something separate from your life. Krishna consciousness is who we are. This is our life, and understanding our world and understanding how we perceive the world. So basically, this healing work is based on, so when you talk about healing, obviously there's something to be healed, right? So we are in a diseased condition in the sense of we're suffering. And so what is, when you think about it, what is the healthy state? If we know we're diseased, what does it look like to be in a healthy state?
Is that something we would know?
I'm sorry?
Is that something we would actually know, what it's like to be in a healthy state?
Well, yeah, exactly, because according to Bhagavad Gita, it's explained that as souls, this is our original position. This is who we are. So when you look at, a lot of the philosophies that are, out there, there's a lot of, and also, when we think about success, people talk about success. What it is to be successful. And it's always kind of outside of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So it's good for people
achieve.
who are, it's something to achieve. So it's great for people who are successful. It works for them. But the people who are looking at that and are going, I'm not like this. And then they become like, that means I must be a loser, or either something wrong with me, or, I can't be like that. So a lot of what we're going through in this, type of culture that we live in is we have these ideal of what is success look like, and all of that. When we understand that we're all individual, unique spiritual beings, then success looks different for you, and it looks different for me. It looks different for each person. It's not a blanket statement that this is what success look like. For a mother, being successful is to have a beautiful child and raise that child in a beautiful way. It doesn't have to be that she has to be with a microphone in front of 1,000 people. That, you know what I mean? And make millions of dollars. So all of these things are relative. So in the work that I do, I help people understand and get to where they are. Instead, and actually letting go of all these conditionings, letting go of, all these ideals that they're creating, due to either the parents or what they've heard, or social media, or, like that. And just helping them to just be satisfied with who they are, and then try to find who they are, like that. And just to get back to your original question, how I got to there was because of my son. Really, he was my greatest teacher.
Okay.
Naratown, right?
Yeah.
So my son.
Sorry, Naratown is the older. Is that
he's
correct?
the older one. Yes, he's 22 right now.
Wow.
So I had him actually in Ireland. He was born in Ireland. He's an Irish boy. So when he was 21 months, he got cancer, a neuroblastoma, very aggressive type of cancer. Along with that, he had an autoimmune disorder that was attacking his brain, so he couldn't walk or talk. So obviously, it's my first child. Very intense, very difficult situation. So I spent, years and years just to maintain his life, really. And I had to numb myself emotionally to do that, because it was too heavy to have to deal with all of, he nearly died so many times. So once he started to get better, then I started working on myself more. So I did a lot of healing on myself.
Okay.
And also, I guess I can call it a process of surrender, because even after that, he got ill many times where he almost died. Like I can count at least 7 times he almost died in his life. So every time I was faced with the death of my son. So how am I going to deal with that internally? So obviously, emotionally, I was a mess. Obviously, it's not an easy thing.
No.
And definitely. Again, that's when it defined what healing really is. Somehow we have this idea that, we shouldn't be affected. But the point, or like we should be transcendental. But I mean, when you're dealing with your son dying, it's normal to be having intense emotional, response, right? We're not
We
made out
we
of
shouldn't try to hide
exactly
what you might call the negative
yes,
emotions.
yes, because especially in this Western culture, as soon as a child starts to cry, oh no, it's okay, even in a nice way, we're telling the child to stop crying. So we could say it in a not nice way, like quit crying, you're just a wimpy baby or whatever. Or you can just say, oh, please, it's okay, don't worry, instead of actually helping them to manage their emotions, like to get through it and understand there's an end to it. So this is something that's very, very important to understand, is that once it comes to the emotional platform, it must be dealt with, because otherwise it gets stuck in the body. It just gets stored there in the energy body. And this is what I help the people with. It's all of the stored emotions, the stored trauma that is stored in the body and the energy body. And it affects people in different ways according to which part of you is the weakest. For some people, they have a very strong mind and they can just move on, but then their body starts to break down. And some people, they may not have such a strong mind, but they have a stronger body, and it will affect them. They will deal with depression, or maybe even becoming suicidal or anxious or like that. So it affects people in many different ways. And so basically, Narottam has taught me that, transcendence doesn't mean to just forget and negate everything. That's impersonalism. So you actually see where you are and help yourself to go beyond it by facing your fears, facing your emotions. So the way I do the healing work is we all have a subtle body, and the subtle body is made of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, all the things we identify with. And Srila Prabhupada talks many times about the identification as like I'm Irish, Canadian, American, and doing so many, like working with hundreds and hundreds of people over a decade now, I'm seeing also just identifying ourselves as a victim. That's also an identification. Or thinking I'm stupid. That's another identification. So we have so many different types of identification, that are not helping us. So my job is to help people see what they're identifying with, the stories, and help them come to a place where they don't want this anymore. And once they get there, then I help them to release it. And that's where the more mystical, less easy to describe part is, because I can expand my energy body into anybody, which of course I never do without their permission. But if I expand myself into your body or your energy body, I will feel everything that, like all the blockages. I don't read people's minds, so don't worry about that. But I do feel things. I do feel energies. So let's say if you're dealing with, maybe you're stressed because you have a second child coming and you don't know how you're going to maintain your family. So if I tune in, I will feel. That's So if I tune into you, I'm going to feel that. And then I'm going to help you to see, okay, is it necessary for you to feel stressed? Is the stress going to help you to take care of your family better?
Of course not.
Exactly. So that's what everybody would say. Now, why we're still continuing with the stress?
Because I really don't know. It just,
because you don't address it, right?
Yeah.
You just think it's automatic. Of course I'm stressed out. I have another baby on the way, and there's all this crazy stuff going on in the world. Of course I'm stressed out. You don't think there's any other way to deal with it. But the point is that when you have knowledge, the stress goes away. Once you realize that, you have control over your internal, I I say the internal landscape, this is the one place we have control over inside of ourselves, how we react to things, how we're affected by things. That's what we have control over. But we have a tendency to want to control everything outside of ourselves so that we can feel better.
Yes, I've noticed that. Yes, we do.
That's basically how most people live, right? And so it takes knowledge to see, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so this person just said this about me and it bothers me. Now I can try to change that person, but really I don't have any control over that person. Maybe they'll stop saying it, but they'll still think it. I have a limited control over external circumstances and people. So what I have to do is then say, okay, why is this bothering me? It's bothering me because, maybe it's unjust. Maybe they misread me. Maybe they didn't, there's so many different reasons.
Usually, I find maybe it comes down to misunderstanding. Maybe some of it.
Yes. But see, what I'm saying is that it's, there's a process of self-realization, right? So first you have to see where you are. Because a lot of time I find people who enter into spiritual communities and all of a sudden they're trying to act like a spiritual person, but inside of themselves, there's all kinds of things going on, like internal battles, really. And but then we want to put up this image because we want to be accepted and, all of that. But then, and we're afraid, and then we have to hide, all of our desires and other things, Do you see what I mean? Like it could be problematic because then why you're joining a spiritual community? Isn't it because you actually want to make spiritual progress, or do you actually want to be accepted and loved by other people?
When you want to be accepted.
These are all questions I would be asking you, for example, in a session. I'd say, okay, so what do you really want? Because obviously I'm here for you. So if you just want to be loved and accepted, then, we could do something. And then if you really want to make spiritual advancement, then you'll withdraw from trying to,
make yourself look good.
Well, it depends. I'm speaking in general terms, and it's really just general terms because, there are cases where you definitely need to deal with things. I mean, if it's harming a child or, then obviously you have to speak out. But if it's something towards you, like somebody just, did something, then what I would say to you, instead of getting angry and stressed out, just release all of that and deal with the person. Because a lot of time I find that people make themselves more miserable than the situation itself calls for. I don't know if you've experienced that. We're making it bigger,
Yeah, obviously the mind makes it into something bigger than it already is. Yes.
Yeah. So basically it's about understanding how the mind works and to see that we are separate from the mind. And actually, if you read in the Bhagavad Gita, to control the mind is like the beginning. That you can't have spiritual life without controlling the mind, because if the mind controls you, then yes, exactly. And so that's why I find that this is, it's a very helpful tool to be more self-aware of why, there's so many examples I can give. But like I can give one example that I ran into, which was actually quite phenomenal. That there was a child that a friend, someone brought her granddaughter to me, and she had been abused, and she was suicidal. She was young, like 11 years old. So you would think in a situation like that, like, what can you do? Like, it's a heavy thing. It's a really difficult thing. And it had just happened. So it's not something from 40 years ago either. So it's to be able to go in and help her to find and create a happy place within herself. Of course, she's a child, so I was doing a lot more of using her imagination and helping her that she has control over that. Whatever it is that happened was horrifying and horrible, but she doesn't have to take it with her. And so that's what I gave to her. And then by the grace of God, he gave me the ability to move energies out. So energies of trauma, whatever it is, it's an energy. Like we just think about it like I'm sad, I'm afraid, or I'm angry, like that. But when you actually look at it from an energetic perspective, we're using fear, we're using anger, and those are all energies. And it could be channeled in the proper way. So that's what I was doing with her. And it was a little more involved, but anyway, at the end of the session, she went to her grandmother and she said, she was crying and she said, I'm free. I'm finally free. She said she had the key. I was locked in a cage and she had the key, and she opened the cage and I'm out and I'm free. And she kept going into the mirror and she said, I'm smiling and it's real. And it was so amazing. And even a year later, she called me and she said, every time I go through difficulties, I just go to my happy place.
Yeah.
So it's like now she got a tool, but she got freed from that trauma. And even visual memories, we can actually move them out. And so basically, this subtle body is like a repository of all kinds of imprints from our lives or even other lives. And you have control over that. And thank you. You have control over that. And you can release it at will. It's just when it's old, sometimes you may need a little help. Like I know how to do that part, but for you and anyone else listening, I would highly suggest that whenever you go through a situation, that you actually express your emotions in a healthy way, so that you can move on and you don't keep piling things in.
And how would you do that? Like, just as an example, because I think as people, we don't learn how to express our emotions and our feelings and even our thoughts. So is there some way that we can do that without kind of feeling, oh my God, I'm having to do something weird here,
Well, first you have to stop the cause of the feeling. And we always think about, like, if I asked you, so what are you angry about or what you're anxious about? What would be your response?
Money.
Okay, so that's what people would say. I don't have a job, or it's money, or whatever it is, right? So but this money and all of that, that's just, it's like a trigger, but it's not the actual cause. The cause is how you see money. So whatever your thoughts are, like I can't make money, for example, right? Whatever it is that your thoughts are, that story that you make up will generate feelings inside of you. So the first thing I would say is watch your thoughts, watch your thought process, and then challenge it. So look at it, and then you have to look at it and challenge it. You can't just look at it and let it go. Like, you have to challenge it. Okay. Like, you still have a house, right?
Yeah.
And you still have meals. You have enough food.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. So then your mind, you would say to your mind, so what are you worried about? I've managed so far. I'm sure it will, I may not know right this minute, but I know, I'm healthy. I can do things. You know what I mean? What is worry going to do? Is it going to bring more money into your life?
Well, obviously, absolutely nothing.
Exactly. So that's what you do. You look at your thoughts and you challenge your thoughts. Right. And then once you can get rid of the thoughts is one of the things you can get rid of. Ignore, push it away. It's like a cloud. It has no substance. So that's the part you want to let go of. And you don't have to deal with it. You don't have, because the more you analyze it, just think of it this way. It's like a thought is some energy that just passes by. And then you grab it and you look at it, or maybe somebody throws it at you. oh, you're a terrible father, whatever, like, so you take that thought and you go, oh, maybe I am, maybe I am a bad father. And all of a sudden your mind will find so many things. Maybe you lost it with your child one time and you screamed. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, this is how it works.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to like be really conscious of every moment, that and what thoughts are coming, because this is how we perceive the world. Like we both of us lived in Ireland. So we were both in the same country. You live in Ireland. I used to live in Ireland. But I experienced Ireland differently than you did. So reality is very subjective from one person to another, according to our experiences, the fact that I was a foreigner. You were born in Ireland. So to you, Ireland is nothing. For me, it was like, wow, Europe, it's like, so it's still Ireland.
Yeah.
Ireland hasn't changed. I saw it differently than you did. So you may think, oh, this Ireland is, and I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. So it really how we perceive reality. So that's why you want to be able to always question. And of course, we need spiritual knowledge. I mean, you can't, if you really want to heal at a deepest level, then you need to understand who you are as an eternal, full of bliss, full of knowledge, spiritual being. That's exactly who we are. And so, like Prabhupada used to ask, so that if you are eternal, then why are we afraid of death? I mean, that's a good question, right? Why am I afraid of death if I know I'm never going to die? I'm eternal. So then I have to look at that. This is spiritual healing. When you're thinking, okay, so why? Why would I want, maintain that fear, which is actually what's keeping us in our body, that fear. And I mean, in ignorance, I should say, it's keeping us in ignorance. So, and then if we're blissful, then why are we always miserable?
Good question.
You know what I mean?
We don't ask ourselves that enough. I don't think.
We don't. This is the point, is that we have to be independently thoughtful. We have to keep asking questions. That's a sign of intelligence. So we can't just walk through spiritual life and just go through the motion, chant our mantras like a robot, because we're not robots. And then we have to start thinking, okay, so if everything is living, right, we're all spiritual beings. Well, the grass is also a soul. Inside that blade of grass, there's a soul. Otherwise, it wouldn't be growing, right? So then, if you're a devotee and you think like that, and you start to feel sad about something or depressed about something, you just have to look out the window and see these billions of blades of grass and think, that could be me. I could be in that body. But look, I can think for myself. I can eat and taste food. Like how incredible. I'm in this body where I can think independently. Like I have a little dog. He doesn't really think much. I mean, he's more elevated than the blade of grass, but I can't exactly sit down and have a conversation with him like I do with you. So then you start developing like this attitude of gratitude. And it sounds a little, but where you start being grateful, like, wow, I'm a human being. Then on top of that, we actually have means to understand that we are spiritual beings, that we're soul. We have knowledge that comes from thousands of, like a whole lineage, thousands of years. Great sages have been, enlightening us with this knowledge, Veda Vyas. So really our good fortune is incredible. So why would we be despondent or, and just worry about money when we know that God maintains all living entities? So then you start asking more and more questions, and then you think, well, it's sometimes I think about that and I think maybe I have a bit of a lack of faith. I'm reading all these things. Do I really believe it? So you have to see where you put your faith in. Do you put your faith in the 1,000-year-old scriptures, Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, and do we have faith in, dare I say, the government, or, any other entities, right? Where do we place our faith? And you have to look at that, because I've had a lot of clients who've placed their faith in relationships that didn't last, or that took advantage of them, like that. So we have to look at basically how we live our life, and start to take charge of our decisions, and not just act because one of fear, or because how our parents raised us, or like the conditionings that we came from. So basically, this healing is helping people to let go of the things that are no longer serving them, like conditionings and things like that, so that they can start making decisions for themselves. So that's basically what what this healing is about.
Yeah, but it seems that also you're a spiritual coach, so it seems that there's like an interconnection or interrelation between everything that you do. Your own spiritual life, and then healing a person,
yes,
but also bringing them along a spiritual path too, getting them thinking about their own situation.
Well, this is it. It's about questions. That's what I like a lot about healing, because I used to give lectures on spiritual knowledge and Bhagavad Gita, and I still explain to people about the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. I just do it in a different way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time when we hear those things, it makes sense to us, but it stays on the cognitive level. And it's hard to transfer that into actual realization, so that we can actually live accordingly. Like I said, with the example of to always bring it back to us. Why am I upset about this? Why do I get angry about the things that are going on? Why all this, so maybe I still are wanting to control. So what can I change within myself to be able to, let go of that desire to control, or even just come to a place of acceptance? This is a big one. Acceptance is huge. And not everybody understand what acceptance means. That's a big one, because let's say, for example, in my past, I was abused as a child. So that's a good example of, something that happened, and it's really unfortunate. But at the same time, if I come to a place of complete healing, I have to come to a place of complete acceptance. So it doesn't mean that I accept the behavior of the perpetrator. It doesn't mean that I think he did the right thing. It just means I accept that it happened. That's all. And so a lot of time when I work with other people, with my clients, I usually always honor their feelings first and what they've been through, because it was heavy. I mean, we're not we're not hard-hearted, and we're not impersonal. We understand these things are very damaging, and suffering is real, right? But the point is that unless we let that go and accept it, we're going to be carrying it with us for the rest of our lives. And it really is debilitating, and it's affecting the people we choose. It's affecting how we don't have a good personal boundary. It's affecting pretty much almost all aspects of our lives. And so it's important to regain our own inner powers, because as long as we see ourselves as victims, that means that we can't do anything about it. If I'm a victim, I have no say. So basically what I explain to people is that at that time when that happened, like in my situation, when it happened at that time, that was real. But right here, right now, when I'm talking to you, it has no reality because it was in the past. It doesn't exist anymore. So the only thing that exists is a memory inside my body, right?
Right.
Because it's called, in Sanskrit, it's called a samskara. It's an imprint. So it's a lot more intense than an actual memory because they call it also a bodily memory. So basically, it's like the trauma got frozen in time. So if you take something and you freeze it, when you unfreeze it, it's the same, right? The frozen doesn't take anything away. It's the same thing. So when you take that kind of a trauma and all of a sudden you look at it, you unfreeze it or it gets triggered, that same intensity of emotions that you went through at that time is right there. That's why most of the time people don't want to go there. It's too painful. Because you not only remember the incident, you feel the terror, you feel the hopelessness, the powerlessness. So that's basically what I offer to people, is that I'm able to hold it and move it out. And literally many times, people will fall asleep. I mean, they're literally snoring on the table while I'm moving all of that, wow, heavy, intense emotions. Because I personally feel that I don't believe people should go through it 2-3 times, keep reliving it over and over again, because it just re-traumatizes them. And so somehow, I prayed and Krishna or God gave me that ability that I can hold it and move it without the person going into a cathartic episode. So they actually they feel, it's almost like putting them to sleep for an operation and they feel nothing. It's kind of interesting like that, but I'm just really happy that I'm able to offer that to people, that they don't have to deal with that heavy, And so then what happens, and that's what a lot of my clients are saying at the end, is that it's just not there anymore. So whenever they go through stuff, it doesn't trigger anymore. Because before you had all of this trauma and heavy emotions, they would get triggered and you have a whole tsunami of things. It's not just what happened to you yesterday. It triggers all the other stuff from years of pent-up emotions. So once you get rid of that, you only have to deal with what you're dealing with, which is more manageable. So if that makes sense.
I think so, yeah.
But I would like, to get more questions. I don't want to just keep on going. If there's anyone who has question.
Yeah, do we have any questions on the Facebook? If anyone, of course, anyone who has any questions, then please put them up on the Facebook comments.
Yeah, I would love to hear anyone's question, or if you have questions.
I'm trying to say now, if anything, I'm just getting smiley faces and you don't look 50, Pushpa says.
Oh, thank you, Pushpa. You're so sweet.
Pushpa's always listening in. So, and a few others too.
Wonderful.
No, but I had a question. Like, is it? You're talking about energy and stuff like that, and we may be angry, or we may be sad, or we may have so many different emotions, and how we respond or react to it. So that's basically down to choice. How we.
Well, it's
or would it be down to choice?
It's usually a reaction due to your conditioning. The past conditioning. That's why we do it without thinking, right?
Yeah.
So what we do during healing session is you actually stop and you look at it. Okay, so why am I doing this? When you're not in the middle of it, because obviously, if all of a sudden you're in the middle of an argument, this is not the time to be saying, "Okay, John, you know what I mean."
Stop basically, it, need to look.
Yes. Well, for you, this is when. See, when you look at all this, and you see, okay, I get triggered by, I don't know, what are the things you get triggered by?
I suppose if something doesn't happen according to what I have in my head, or it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. Like I
Yes.
really
Okay. Well, that's a very good example.
Angry about,
Yeah. That's a great example of not accepting. Because the point is, reality is what happens. That's reality. Yeah. But we always make up so many things, how we want things to go. But until it actually happens, it's not real. So I'll give you an example. This is an important example. And maybe some of your listeners have this experience. I don't know. But like my Naratam also has autism. So when you have a child, right, you're about to have a child, second child.
In a few days.
So you're always excited, where everybody comes together, we're excited, my child is coming. So you can't help your mind always create, how it's going to be, especially with the first one, how it's going to be. And, you create all this fantasy in your mind. Mm-hmm. And then, when you realize my child doesn't act the same way the other kids act and what's going on, and, and all of a sudden you get the diagnosis of autism. And then boom, your whole world just crashes. Nobody invites you to parties anymore. Like all this kind of things happen. And it's a difficult thing. So you go through a grieving process, just like the death of a child, because it's not the death of a child, it's the death of what you thought your child was going to be like. And all of us, because nobody is having a child going, ooh, I hope he has autism. Nobody thinks like that, but it happens. So then you need to come to a place of like, wow, now I so appreciate my son. And to be honest, I have so many of my friends are on the spectrum in some way, because they're so blunt and, like what you see is what you get. I love it. Like they're just so honest. They don't know how to lie. And I really enjoy that feature of them. So I have a lot of my friends who I actually got to really enjoy and love autism, to be honest. But, it's, but again, it's your thought process. So at one point, I was really upset about the fact my son has autism, and now it doesn't bother me. And the autism is still there. So how did I get from there to here?
So it's just to come on to that point about autism, obviously I know certain people who are on spectrum too. Uh-huh. And it seems that it has a stigma with it, autism. But coming to what you're saying, that you're okay with it, or you've accepted it. Autism for you doesn't seem like such a horrible thing anymore.
I mean, it has. I mean, the thing is, it's just like anything else. I mean, there's things that are, that my son does that every once in a while, I have to deal with that are kind of out of the ordinary, but somehow or other, this child is protected. I mean, like, all the things that he's done that, he used to just walk away. I would just like have a conversation for literally 1 minute with somebody. I'd turn around, he was gone, like so many things like that, and like when we were in India, he was walking down this path, and it turns out it was where cobras are laying down their eggs.
Wow.
And somehow or other, he didn't get bitten. He had no idea. But somehow he was walking there, and somebody called me like, do you know that he's walking down the path where the cobras lay their eggs, like the cobra's nests. So, but somehow or other, it's incredible how he almost died so many times. And I even have doctors that when I go over to the hospital, they call him the miracle boy. So that increased my faith in the existence of God, because I know for a fact that medically speaking, this child should not be alive today. He should have never made it to 22 years old. He's 22 now.
Wow. And he's a man now.
He's a man. I know, I still call, sorry. His mother, but he's, I was talking with, one of his speech therapists this weekend, and he was saying he's just an angel, like people really appreciate him for who he is. Like, he just hugs everybody. He never judges anyone, ever. He never has any, I mean, can you imagine? And also, he doesn't care what people think. I mean, it's quite
great.
a wonderful
It's actually
thing,
great, yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
how many people can walk around and not worry about what people think? And I mean, it's a plus, because then as a teenager, he never got into drugs, he never drank, he didn't try to fit in with everybody else. So there's pluses as well, you know?
Yeah.
So this is the thing. You just let go of all this fear and all the emotions that clouds your thinking. Let that go, cry it out, you know, find a good friend, cry on their shoulders. Or you were talking about emotions. Now, I remember just a little tip. If you're really angry and you want to get your anger out without hurting anyone, feelings or physically hurting anybody, you actually can take a towel and you just squeeze it as hard as you can until you feel better. Okay. So that's one way of getting the anger out. And you can teach that to your children. Or if they're really small children, you can make them stomp like dinosaurs on the floor and roar like lions. That's another way for kids. Now, obviously not adults. But I teach kids about how to let go of their emotions, and it really works. And then the fear, you can usually shake it out because it's usually in your nervous system. Because it's meant to be making you run really fast so you can run away, or in your arms so you can fight. That's what fear is actually. That's the whole reason why fear is there, is to protect us. So we have the adrenaline shooting through our system so we can actually run or fight. But then the problem when you've been abused is it gets frozen because you can't run away and you can't fight. So then it gets frozen in there. So you have all of that pent up, even just physiologically, you have all this pent up adrenaline in your body. So then people start to, have issues later on. If you don't deal with it, you'll start having tremors or have PTSD, feeling. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. There's right. There doesn't seem to be any questions on the WhatsApp, but I was just curious about, you were saying that you traveled and lived in many different countries, including Ireland, obviously, and India. So what was that like? Obviously you had to. I think you lived in Florida or America, and then you moved to India, I think, and then came around to Ireland and back to Florida.
Yes.
Just was wondering about that, because I remember you mentioned that to me that before
I
when
know,
you were living in Ireland.
It's very interesting when I look back at my life and I'm thinking, okay, so I was born in Montreal. Then, I moved to Vancouver, BC. That's where I met my husband. Then we went to Oregon, Seattle, back to Vancouver. Then we went to Taiwan, Ireland. I had my son in Ireland. And then we moved to Dallas, Texas. That's when he had cancer. And then from there, we moved to Alachua. And then we stayed in Alachua, Florida for a long time until we came to India. Then we moved to India. The reason why I moved to India was actually also because of my son, my older son, because I started realizing that he had a lot of post-traumatic stress, he was exhibiting a lot of stress, post-traumatic stress from his gone through cancer and autoimmune disorder and so many other things. So therefore, I thought that in India, we could live in this place that has an Ayurvedic center, and maybe it would calm him down and we could actually start the healing process for him. So that was my thought process. But then we got to India, and India itself is not easy for someone on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
All the honking and, the extreme heat. And so let's say it didn't quite work out as I thought it would work out, except that my younger son loved it. Okay. It was really great for him. He really enjoyed it. So I really loved India. I would have stayed. I really enjoyed India. It was great for my younger son. It's not that Narottam didn't like it at some level, but it was just getting a little intense for him.
Okay.
And so that's why we decided, well, we don't quite want to go back to America, so why don't we just go to Ireland? So that's how we ended up in Ireland.
All right. Okay.
And yeah, but
What
it
was
was
your
nice.
experience of Ireland, if I don't mind me asking?
Well, interestingly, it's like, so I had Narratom, and I lived in Cork when I
Right,
had
Cork.
Narratom.
Okay.
And I have to say, it was some of the happiest times of my life. Absolutely loved Ireland. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I just absolutely adored Ireland. And in Cork was so nice. I mean, I used to go, I didn't drive anywhere. I was walking everywhere. And, the lakes and the people are so nice. So I really enjoyed my time in Ireland very much. But then we had to leave. It was like they were opening their borders for the EU. So it was becoming more difficult for us to get immigration. So that's when we decided, okay, well, let's just go back to America. But in the back of my mind, I still was so sentimentally attached to Ireland because I had such a fantastic, so I always, in the back of my mind, I always wanted to go back to Ireland. And so when I lived in Ireland, I mean, wherever I am, I feel at home. I don't know what it is in my psyche, but I feel more at home outside of my place of birth than I do in my actual place of birth. So I always feel more at home in other countries I don't know, I just love people. I love different cultures. I'm kind of like a chameleon like that. Maybe that's why I'm able to enter people's energy field and feel all of their feelings. And I don't know, I kind of like blend in. I have this kind of personality where I just kind of blend in wherever I am. So I really, really enjoyed that.
I suppose that helps to be able to do what you do. The fact that you like people and you like all different people from all different parts of the world.
Yes, I can relate to pretty much anybody. And so that's very helpful. It's definitely very helpful. Yeah, that was one thing that when they did my astrology, that he was saying that I have this ability to put myself on the shelf and totally merge into a person. Now, I'm not talking about merging, like real merging, but it's like I don't, sometimes there's healers that can tune into you, but then they wonder, okay, is this me or is this him, or is that, who's feeling that? Whereas for me, I just know it's not me because I'm totally 100% with my clients. So I don't, I'm not thinking about when I need to go cooking for my kids. I'm completely focused. And, but it's just, everyone is different. And, interestingly enough, it took me a long time to find myself. I used to think like, I'm not good at anything. I would look at these people who could like dress the pujaris and to dress the deities so beautifully. And I was thinking, I can't do that. Or people who cook these amazing foods, I can't do that. Like, what can I do? Like, I can do things, but never like really well. And so I didn't know other than I love people. And then so Krishna just manifested this gift. And I was like, oh, I can do this. This is something I can do. Because it's like most people are thinking, why would you want to deal with people's trauma like, 3-4 times a day, like 6 days a week when you already have your own stuff? Like, why would you want to do that? So I don't know. I just couldn't do anything else. I guess that's my world. I've been in it for so long.
You seem, you don't seem fazed by it. You seem very happy to do it. Enlivened by it.
I really love it. To be honest with you, the only time that I would be drained in some way is if I were to help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
Right.
Like they may say they want the help, but they're not willing to do their own work. So therefore, there's not much I can do. Like I can go into your energy body. I can move energies if you choose to let them go. But if you, let's say you're resentful towards someone, you've been holding that in, resentment. And I say, okay, we're going to release the resentment. And so you may say, I choose to release this resentment completely and fully out of my energy, physical body now, right? But you don't really mean it. Because in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I can't, you still have not accepted that this person really cheated you. Maybe you lost thousands of dollars, maybe a business partner or something, and you just can't let it go. Well, there's nothing I can do. I can't help you. I can only help you when you say, you know what, I don't, okay, he did what he did. There's nothing I can do. I'm just going to accept it and just move on. Then I can help you. Then I can move it. So for me, like with this young girl, the fact that after the healing, she never had another attempt on her life. She stopped cutting herself, and she's now, able to actually deal with the challenges in her life. Well, that's huge. Why would I want to do anything else? Like, oh my gosh, like you're creating miracle on a daily basis for people. It's fantastic. Obviously, I'm not doing it, but I'm just an instrument. I'm really just being guided, and I just follow the guidance. But it comes from a place, again, it's because of my son. He taught me how to surrender. He taught me how to surrender. It's like there's nothing I could do. My son had cancer. I have to deal with it. I can't go away from it. I have to just deal with it. Even if I hate it, I still have to deal with it. So I learned to just accept even the things that I don't like, and make the best out of it. And so I guess because I did some of my work, I'm able now to help other people when they're dealing with their issues, So I find it really energizes me to see that, that a person who comes in, to my office and they're completely distraught and then they walk out and they're floating practically. It's not everybody, but it's the majority, especially those who came that they just had enough. They don't want to live like this anymore. That's the easiest because they've already made up their minds. So then all I have to do is just move it. But what takes the longest is to actually question people so that they can look at it from this angle, that angle, until they come to a place where I don't need this anymore. That's what takes the longest time, is to actually bring the person to the awareness that this is not helping me, even if I keep it in,
Yeah. There need to be, I suppose, some training, so to speak, and have to be able to do that.
There are, I mean, one thing I'm amazed since this gift opened up is I'm realizing that not sure really what's doing it. Maybe it's technology or something, but there's so many people who have gifts now. They can see energies, or they can hear, or they, I'm meeting more like normal people. I mean, regular people, I should say, and they're all like having these gifts. And I think, this is just my own, it's not a philosophical thing, but just my own observation, because we're so much embedded with this technology that we're spending most of our time in the mental world, with movies and,
video games
and
YouTube and
what are they getting into now? There's some metaverse or something.
Oh yeah, metaverse.
Like virtual reality. So this is all mental. So it's like you don't have to do anything. You just have to watch other people, and you have the same emotional reaction. So that's how I describe to my clients about the subtle body, because I'm like, you can sit there and watch a movie. Let's say it's a romantic movie, and all of a sudden your heart is beating and you have the same things and nothing. You're just sitting in a chair and you're just watching somebody else. And plus, on top of that, they're not even real. They're actors. None of it is real. So it just shows you how the illusory energy really has a hold on us. I mean, even think about it, think about fear, for example. So fear is something that's very real. But you have to look at why you're afraid. Like a young child, for example, like your son. Let's say he's afraid there's monsters under the bed. Now, he may be terrified at night. So the terror is real, but the monsters under the bed are not real. So you have to look at, okay, Prabhupada gave that famous, example of the rope and the snake. When the light is off, you think it's a snake and you're freaking out, but then you turn on the light and it's just a rope. Oh, okay. It's just a rope. So So when you have spiritual knowledge, you have that ability to kind of tone down a little bit and understand, like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, like when things really happen in the physical reality, like let's say somebody goes through a divorce, it's a heavy thing, like me with my son with cancer. It's a heavy thing that we go through. This is when we tolerate. And even in the culture of India, they would have a time for mourning. They would actually have that. They wouldn't go to work and they would just cry. They would actually have a time where they would mourn, because you have to let out these emotions. But in this Western culture, there's not really much knowledge about that.
Or time, you might say. You don't give ourselves time to be able to do it.
And then all we do is find solution to deal with the symptoms without actually dealing with the real problem. How many people that I worked with, I even had someone I worked with who had an actual physical problem, where his bone marrow, and he's an older man, his bone marrow was not producing any more red blood cells of his own. So he had to get transfusions and things. So he came to see me, and I did a session because I just literally just felt his bone marrow intuitively, like I tuned into his bone marrow, and it was all this sadness in there. So the energy was an energy of giving up on life. So no wonder the bone marrow is not working. See, everything is personal,
I see, yeah.
It's not just like, oh, it's a chemical, there's a problem with the chemicals in there. No, it was his mental state was affecting his physical. Mm-hmm. So once we healed all of that, within 3 days, his bone marrow was in full remission. So that's mind over matter. But again, you just have to get to the root cause of things.
Okay.
So, but of course, again, experience is more than just, I can say so many things, but unless somebody experienced, like you experienced it, and, like it's always interesting when someone has never experienced it and they're all the way in Ireland or France or wherever. Yeah. And I tune in and I go, oh, what's going on with your shoulders? Like, how do you know that? Like, I don't know you. I've never seen you in my life. And you're all the way on the other side and you can feel the shoulder pain I have, but it's just, to me, it's so natural, but I sometimes forget that it's not normal for most people, because it's kind of my world now. So
yeah.
It just became so natural to me. But it's just about an awareness of subtle energy, because our consciousness is absorbed in matter, in physical reality, and that subtle body or subtle energy reality, we're not many people are attuned to it. But then beyond that,
is that something that we can all kind of tune into, you might say?
Yes, it just takes practice.
Practice, yeah.
Well, it's very simple. Like if you want to just take a moment, I can just demonstrate to whoever is listening. They can just do this for just a minute. Do you have a minute to do that?
Yeah, go. A minute, yeah.
Okay. So basically, just for everyone to just close their eyes. It might not be easy for everybody to do that, but you just close your eyes, and basically most of the time our awareness is up in our head. And the reason is very simple, is because we take in the world through our eyes, our ears, our mouth, our nose, we're smelling, and we process everything through the brain. So this is where you're aware of your thoughts. So if you want to know what your thoughts are, you just kind of go within and you just listen. And then the thoughts will come. Trust me. You just stay clear for a little while and the thoughts will start going, and you'll be able to write down your thought process very quickly. But if you want to go to feeling and sensing your energy body, you need to get out of the head and you need to go down to the middle of, like in the heart chakra. And you can do that through visualization. It's really about bringing the mind and giving the mind, like to focus the mind on something. So usually for people who are not used to it, I'll say, just visualize that you're inside your own head and there's a staircase going from the head through the throat and into the heart. And you take a deep breath in, breathe out, make your way down the stairs until you get to the heart. And there you just want to observe. So you just sit and you don't try to make sense of anything, try to analyze anything. You're just observing. Is there pain over here? Are my eyes starting to tear up? Do I have constriction on my chest? And so you just kind of take note of anything you can feel in your body. And you want to definitely be aware of the discomfort. So then we know what to deal with and what to move out. So, and then in order to re-energize your energy body and bring in positive energy, again, you use imagination, because that the mind creates. Just like your mind will create unhappiness, your mind can also create happiness. So then you'd want to like come into your heart and then visualize that, you know, you're standing on top of a mountain. It's very peaceful. And then you'll take another deep breath, you breathe out, bring your awareness all the way down to your feet. And then you'll visualize that there's roots coming out of your feet. Obviously, none of this is real. You're just imagining all of that. We all know that, but you want to do this so that you can bring in the energy. So you're visualizing there's roots going down into the earth. And then you'll just say, and now I'm absorbing the energy from the earth. It's going from my toes to my feet and up my ankles. And then you just go through the whole body, energizing every cells of my body with nurturing earth energy. And then you just kind of bring it in until you can kind of feel more relaxed. And then if you want, you can like bring your arms up and visualize the sun is above your head, shining through the top of your head and the crown chakra, and visualize that the energy is infusing every cells of your body from the top of your head all the way down to your toes. And then you bring your arms in front of you, your hands in front of your heart, and then you offer gratitude. And then you're just thoughtful, thanking the earth for maintaining all life, for giving us food, for maintaining us, for holding us. And then we thank the sun for the light, the warmth, and all the life that the sun and the earth are creating. So it's really about mindfulness. And like if you go into the forest, for example, if you're walking in the woods, you can again come into your heart, taking a deep breath, focusing yourself in the center, and then you just visualize that you're expanding your body. Now that's the energy body we're talking about, which is your mind. So therefore you can do whatever, you can tell the mind whatever you want it to do. So you just say, I'm expanding my energy field, and you just expand your energy body, and then breathe in the energy from the forest. And then you visualize that your entire body, the cells of your body, are taking in that energy. And then you fill yourself up, and then bring your energy body back into your body. And then what I always do is then you visualize like a golden light all around your body, and you infuse that golden light with very clear, firm intentions. So for example, if you're a person who seemed to be absorbing other people's negative energies, then you would focus on that boundary, that energetic boundary, and you would say, I will no longer allow any negative energies from anyone to enter my sacred space. I will rather expand my energy and shine on them, shine my love, my, kindness onto them, but I will not take in their negative energy. So it's all about mindfulness. It's just about being present in the moment and just taking the time to do things. Just like when in Ayurveda, it says when you eat, you should, take your time, not talk about so many, especially not talk about negative things, and really chew your food and enjoy. And this way you're telling your body to accept it, that this is nourishment. So everything, yeah, I mean, even you see in native cultures, they're grateful. They have a ceremony for corn because that's what maintains them. And they always have, they're always grateful to Mother Earth. So even as devotees, it's important to also be grateful to the sun and the moon, and it's just a really nice way to live in gratitude, and to really be aware of, even when somebody just gives a smile, just say, thank you so much for taking the time to smile at me. You're such a wonderful person. Like, it doesn't take much, to just appreciate even the smallest gestures. So it's all about kind of like living in the moment and just being in harmony, I guess, with everyone and everything around you. Just be really thoughtful and mindful. Was there any question? I saw you looking down.
Sorry, yes. I think I was on the wrong page for questions, but I think I've got
okay,
one or two now.
Good. Oh, okay, good.
Okay. Jeevana is asking, when did you realize that you had this ability?
Oh, yeah, that was a very interesting and shocking and scary experience altogether. Like, all of a sudden, whoa, am I going crazy? When you've never experienced these things. So it was very interesting how it happened. Well, first of all, I was healing from my son's cancer and everything that he's been through. So it was definitely a time where I was raw, emotionally really raw. And I was pretty much almost dysfunctional, really, to, I as you could say, I hit my rock bottom. and so at that time, somehow or other, I went over to see someone at the hospital that had just tried to commit suicide, but they were in a coma. The person was in a coma. He had not died from it. And when I went to the hospital, he was laying there and his whole body was inflated because of the inflammation, and he was in a coma. And so I was next to him and I was talking with him, and I was really, really focusing on, for him to really feel me, that I really cared about him, and I loved him as a friend, and like that. And somehow or other, I started to hear him respond to me in my head because he was in a coma, so he could not respond to me. And all of a sudden I'm going, what's going on? And I'm having this discussion with him about whether he should go back or leave. And like, this whole discussion was happening. And then I went back home afterwards. And as I laid in my bed, I felt like I was like a balloon. My body was so inflated, and I thought, wait, what's going on? Like, this is weird, So then I contacted a friend of mine who does energy work, and I said, I don't know what's happening to me. And she responded, she said, where are you? Where did you go? Because you're not in your body. And I'm like, so where am I? And she's like, well, I don't know, where were you? And I said, I was in the hospital. And she said, oh, you're inside his body. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I did that. So how do I get out? Like, this is a scary thing. It's like Abhimanyu entering and not knowing how to get out, right? So I was like, what is this? And so she said, well, it seems like, Krishna is calling you to do this work. So if you like, I can train you. And that was like maybe 3 weeks before I was getting ready to go to India. So she gave me a crash course, basically, on energy work, how to go into someone and how to get out, and how to, use kinesiology. And, so basically I got a crash course on energy work. And so it was like a 3-day, and she just did it for me. And then I went to India. And so basically in India, I used it to work on myself and move my own energies, which is harder because you believe your stories. So I had to really be hard on my mind to let go of the story because, I was really embedded in it. It's easier when you're dealing with someone else. But that's basically how it happened. And then I spent like 3 years of just working on myself and some close friends before I even worked on anybody else. Because if you don't work on your own self and you're working on other people energetically, you're going to keep getting triggered. Every single time you meet someone who's got the same kind of issues as you do, you'll get triggered and you'll be a mess. And then on top of that, you'll get connected with them. You won't know how to disconnect because now you have that empathy with that person. Anyway, so yeah, I would not recommend for anyone to start working with anyone if you're not feeling clear enough, So I worked on diligently on myself for 3 years. And I made a lot of mistakes during those times. A lot of mistakes because you're dealing with, we know as spiritualists that this world is temporary and that the physical reality is not the whole reality, that we're actually spiritual beings. We know that. So this is a type of illusion because it's temporary. To believe it's us, that's the illusion. But when you get into the mind and the energy realm, it's that's where people go when they're on drugs. So the illusion, you don't even have if I want to renovate my house, it's going to take me a long time and a lot of money. But if I want to create something in my mind, it's second. And all of a sudden we're the king, or, I'm with the cutest guy I've ever met, right? I mean, you could create anything you want in your mind. So that whole realm is just pure illusion. So what I tell my clients is this is the one place you do not want to ground yourself, is on the mental. That's the actual mental platform. It's an energetic platform. And it's a dangerous platform because there's a fine line between being a psychic and actually going into a psychosis. There's a fine line there because once you start believing everything your mind is saying, it's very dangerous. So that's why it's important to have solid grounding in spiritual knowledge so you don't get tricked. Otherwise, it's not a place I would tell people to go to. It's, there's people, who are not in physical bodies. And there's all kinds of things in that realm. It's kind of like, it's, if you don't know what you're dealing with. So for me, a lot of times I do healing work even for healers. And they would say, I've never met someone who's so grounded, going so deep and be still grounded. And I really can only attribute this to my formation in Krishna consciousness and our spiritual knowledge. If you don't have a solid footing on what is reality, you're gonna just
get lost.
You get lost in these realms. Yes. So it's very important. And I'm speaking out of experience. That's why I said when I made a lot of mistakes, sometimes it feels so real. That's the problem with the feeling. We think something is real because we feel it. Well, you feel the movies and it's not real, right? So feeling things doesn't make it reality. And again, with the child, the fear is real, but the monsters aren't. So hopefully that answered the question.
Well, Jeevna gives a thumbs up if that answered the question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, another question was, can you do healing from country to country? But I mean, you've already answered that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes.
You can do it from anywhere.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all.
And Pushpa,
because it's beyond time and space. Prabhupada talks about that. Srila Prabhupada talks about this, how you could just close your eyes and be in Vrindavan. If you've ever been to Vrindavan, you can just close your eyes and go to Vrindavan. I mean, Manasa Seva, you can actually do that. You can go into your mind and within a split second, you're there. You don't have to take the plane and go, you're just there. So it's the same thing. I just think about you and boom, I can be into your body. But again, and I'm going to restate that because that's extremely important. I'd never, ever do that with people without their permission. So it's kind of like I tell people, it's not because I see the house that I have to walk into the house. There's a difference there. Yeah. So when I'm walking around, I'm just like everybody else. I don't feel anybody. I'm not getting anything from anyone. I respect everyone's boundaries energetically. And so it's just like you're walking down the street and you see the person's house. So it's not because I see it that I'm going to just go and open the door and walk in. And what to speak of getting stuff out of their house, that's even worse. so that's a boundary that's very important when you do energy work. It's you always ask permission. You have to honor other, because God gives us our sacred space. And also, like, I always, whenever I do this work, I always ask the person to repeat what I say, because I want them to order their mind to do what they want. I don't want their mind to listen to me. So it's not like hypnosis.
I remember doing that in the session. You would always say, repeat after me.
I'll say, okay, now if you can say, so I tune in to get the right words, but you need to say these words. And then of course you have to mean them. So sometimes you have to kind of stop and say it a few times very slowly and really sit with it so you can realize the words. But the words are very powerful. So really the main thing is that the mind cannot hold anything you don't want it to hold. So anyone listening, just know that even though your mind may tell you that you have no control over it, it is bogus. It's not true. Absolutely not true. So it's just the same thing like anything else. Nobody can control you unless you allow them to control you. Because even in abuse cases, most of the time, we actually leave the body, we disassociate. So they may be doing something to the body, but we're out of it. So even on that level, the person cannot control you. They can do things to the vehicle, but you can get out of it. Just like if somebody is about to like beat up your car, you get out of the car and walk away or run away. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. So it's important to know that we're always in control, no matter what. It's just a question of what we believe our reality to be. So if we really truly believe that we're the body, then we will be way more affected. And again, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying in the process of healing, it's important to get to that place where you can let go, and you always have the control over that. And then after that, you can go to court and put that person in jail. Because this has to be done too. But I'm just saying, at least within yourself, you don't hold on to it and continue to be affected by it.
Okay. I think one last thing before we finish up. Pushpa is asking, can we do the healing in ourselves by using tools such as positive affirmation and other tools? Would you suggest other tools?
Okay, so the thing is, in healing ourselves, obviously anyone can heal themselves. And like even Prabhupada said, how long does it take to surrender? 1 second, right? So we always have the choice, but it's just a question of like, it's like if you were saying to me, can everybody work on their car and fix them? Yes, everybody can, but they first have to learn how to be a car mechanic. I would not suggest for someone who knows absolutely nothing about a car to start messing up with their cars. First, you should learn how to do it, and then you can do it. So it's the same thing with healing, because sometimes you may touch a place that you may have forgotten, or you didn't realize that you had these heavy, intense feelings. And all of a sudden it's starting to come out and you don't know how to deal with it. And you get overwhelmed by it. And sometimes it throws people into, panic attacks you always have to be cautious. It depends on what you're dealing with. Because, I have someone who was saying that during mindfulness, they actually triggered a lot of their trauma and went into full-on PTSD. So sometimes you have to be careful. Like for me, I know how to deal with it. Like one time, there was a lady who had a panic attack, literally, interestingly enough, in front of my neighbor's front yard. Somehow she was walking anyway, she went into a full-on panic attack. So she was like hyperventilating, her heart was racing, she was sweating all over. So I immediately went over and I just energetically went around her, and I just kind of like held it and just calmed her energies. And finally she was able to actually calm down without having to dial 911 and put her on an ambulance. And then I brought her into my house, and then I actually was able to release whatever it was, that was triggering that. And then after this, she was back to herself and she went home. But, in other circumstances, most people would have had to dial 911. She would have had a huge bill, hospital bill here in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like when you know how to deal with it, because I know that these feelings of panic, I'm only dealing with energies. I deal with them as energies. I'm not part of the story that created those energies. And with because I've worked so long in that field, that my energy field is very strong. So I can, calm energies down. So therefore, if somebody goes into one of those states, I know how to calm them down.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it's you, and especially if somebody has a complex trauma, I would not suggest for them to work on themselves, because, you want to be safe. Because the point is that we may know that we're eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, but we're not at the place where we're fully transcendental yet. So we're still affected, by feelings. I mean, terror is a very intense feeling. It's a very intense feeling. You can't see and hear anyone when you're in that state. It's a scary state to be in. So, but because I've been through so many of these states in myself with my son, so I've learned how to just sit in the storm and not get
Sit in the eye of the storm,
blown.
basically.
Exactly. I'm able to sit and have all these energies that are really, it's like really like sitting in the eye of the storm. It really is like that.
Mm.
And but I'm not afraid of it. So that's the difference. So I would say, unless you're really, and of course you need to learn how to move energies. I can do that very easily, and it's kind of, I don't even think about it. I just do it naturally, which kind of aggravated my friend who was trying to work on me, and she didn't want me to do anything. And it was impossible for me to sit there and do nothing. It was just not, I was like, but you're not moving them fast enough. It was kind of funny, but so I know how to do that easily, but for someone who doesn't know how to do it, visualization is very powerful, because again, you're dealing with mental creation. You're not dealing with reality. These are all memories, imprints. They're all energetic. It's just subtle energy. So you can really change anger and transmute it into something else. It's like almost like what they do. They'll change one metal into another. Like, we can do that easily with energies. The problem comes when you believe in it. Then it's hard for you to let it go and transmute it, because you're thinking, of course, I should be angry about that, right?
Yeah.
So so it really comes to a place of detachment. And so for me, I'm like, I have this saying that I say to myself, I'm glad I'm on the other side. I finally paid my dues, So whatever I've been through, I'm at least paying my dues. And one thing you can do that's very helpful, I did that at the beginning of my process of healing, was that came from this lady, Byron Katie. It was really, really powerful.
Oh, yeah,
she asked this question. Yeah, she asked this question. So if you were to go back in time and, like, let's say, I don't know if she said God, but I say God gives you the chance to go back in time, and you still have to go through it, but this time you have the choice. You can be the perpetrator, and you can abuse that person instead of them abusing you. So you have the choice. What would you choose? That's the question. What would you choose?
What would I choose?
Yes. I can't see the people who are watching on Facebook. So unfortunately, I would ask them the question, but I can't see them. So, but what would you choose?
Be the victim of
If
the
you're
perpetrator.
a quote unquote good person, right? Without fail, I can tell you, without fail, every single person I ask this, with a split second, there's not even a thought process involved. I would never be the perpetrator. I'd rather be the victim again. If I had to go through it again and I have the choice, I will be the victim again. So when you think about it, that means you're way more powerful than the perpetrator. No? And then you can start feeling sorry for the perpetrator. And all of a sudden you get your powers back. You go, wait a minute. I'm finally paying my karma. This person will have to do this again. I mean, they'll have to be on the other end of the stick next time, because we know that's how karma works, right?
Yeah.
Well, at least you're done with that. And now I can be free to chant Hare Krishna and go back to Godhead.
Be blissful.
I'm finally paying my dues. Yay. I'm no longer a debtor. Anyway, that's how, of course, when we go through it, there's much more.
It's a different story, yeah, when you go through.
It's a different, but I can say for my own self, that's how I look at it. It doesn't make it that it wasn't painful, and I would never wish it on anybody. But it's just a trick to, questioning is very important. That's how you raise awareness. That's how you become more aware. Because if you don't ask any question, you're stuck in that physical reality and there's nothing beyond it. And the only question you're asking are the same ones my dog is asking. When is the food coming? And when am I going to see that girl over there? When is she going to take me to the dog park? I mean, really, you know what I mean? Like, that's really what happens, right? If we don't ask questions, what are we doing? So
eat, sleeping, mating, and defending.
Exactly. Right. I know I'm seeing it now. I'm in dog consciousness because I got a puppy and he's quite all-consuming. But it's nice because now I have an understanding of what Prabhupada was talking about. Because he's a soul as well. But unfortunately, he can't have these conversations. He can't be self-aware. So again, you can be grateful to be in this human body.
But yeah.
You have a whole lot more. You can do so much more. You can do healing work. I do healing work on animals too, by the way. Animals, I don't have to ask them permission. And they're much more, they can let go of emotion so much easier than us because they don't create stories. So yeah, it's all about energies.
Well, it's really amazing what you're doing. And for anyone who is listening, actually, where can people find you if they need help or your guidance?
Well, it's simple. I think I don't know, you're on Facebook Live.
Yeah, we're doing Facebook and YouTube.
Okay, so then you can just put my website on there. It's www.healingheartcoach.com.
Okay.
Or you can just Google it, Healing Heart Coach, and it gives you, it will just send you to my website.
Okay.
And then from there, everything is there. My email, my contacts.
Details and everything will find you. I'm sure you might have a few extra phone calls over the next week or so.
Oh, well, I always love to be helping. I mean, it's the nice thing is that it just, it makes the healing a little faster, because when you can release the heat, all the emotions, it's because that's what's covering, think about a time when you were really angry. You really can't think straight when you're angry. You don't see things, in an equal vision when you're angry. So when we have all of these things covering us, we don't have clarity. And then, we'll do things and we don't know why we're doing them. It could be some conditioning from when we were 2 years old,
Mhm.
And so it's important to kind of stop and say, okay, why am I doing this? Is that still good for me to be like this? Like I have clients that, they had to parent their parents. Their parents were not really taking that role of a parent. And so they were kind of responsible because maybe their parents were alcoholic or on drugs or whatever. So they had to be the grown-up as children. And then they grow up and then they take care of other people and they forget their needs because their needs were never important. Now, they did it at that time just to survive, and that because they were children, they couldn't go anywhere. So they had to kind of find a way to cope within that dysfunctional household. But when you grow up from there, right? So sorry. But when you're an adult, that kind of way of being is not serving you anymore. It's going to push you to burnout, basically. When you start treating everybody else's needs as more important than yours, you won't have much time for yourself. So that's why I'm saying it's important to kind of look at the how we are in the world and our conditioning and all of that. So it's just a way. It's not really to replace any spiritual method of self-realization. It's just more of self-awareness. It's more of the process of self-realization. It's very unique to each person. We're all illusions in different ways according to our experiences. And so, but we can all free ourselves. We do have that power.
It's good to know. It's good to know.
Yes. Everyone has that power. Just sometimes you need some assistance.
Yeah.
And
that's obviously where someone like you comes in to help those who.
Yeah, I mean, what I tell people, it's very simple. It's like, if everyone can clean their house, right? But not everybody knows how to renovate their house.
Mm.
So everyone can learn how to manage their emotions, how to express them, how to deal with their thoughts. Everyone can do that. And when you get angry, let it out. Maybe you go exercise or twist it, whatever you can do to let it out. Maybe go boxing or something. I don't know. You find a way to get it out. So everyone can do that. But if you have trauma from 40 years ago, that's more of a renovation project. Okay. How do you even access it in the first place? Where is it in your body? How do you get that out? Because it's usually in a seed form. It's not, because obviously we're not all walking around with completely, I call it activated, When people are activated, that's when they can't function very well and they have to be on antidepressant or anti-anxiety meds or things like that. That's when they're living in that activated state. Maybe they're just so full they can't deal with it anymore. But most of us can walk around and these things are pretty much buried in the subconscious. So. Okay.
Sorry to cut you off now. We've been... That's fine.
An hour
and a half. It's been great, but it has been wonderful seeing you again and talking to you about all this.
It's so nice to see you again. And I wish you an amazing time, and I can't wait to see the little boy.
Yeah, he's coming in a few days. So we don't exactly know when that's happening, but
I'm so excited.
The time or the date is 17th. So that's like a couple of days from now, but we'll see if he comes down or not.
Well, he'll come just when he's supposed to come.
Yeah, but all is good. We've had a checkup recently, and all is well with the baby inside.
Oh,
waiting on the day, I suppose.
I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful. Well, I pray you have that Pushpa has a very easy, sweet, smooth birth, and baby is healthy and strong.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for everyone. I don't know who I'm talking to, but thank you so much for being there, and looking forward to meeting new people.
Okay, great stuff.
Thank you.
Oh, and give our best to your husband and family, please.
I will.
Say hello from
They're
us.
doing really well. I will. I will do that. Thank you, Prabhu.
All right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
See ya.
Everyone has a story to tell. Shining a light on stories that uplift us, that changes that inspire us. The Yogi Hour. Listen, be inspired.